So, Genesis chapter 11. Genesis, that's the very first book. Chapter 11. Starting at verse 1. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. And as they migrated from the east, they came upon the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." They had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we shall be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." The Lord came down to the city to see the city and the tower which mortals had built. And the Lord said, "Look, they are one people. They all have one language. This is only the beginning of what they do. Nothing they propose to do will now be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language there, so that they will not understand one another's speech." So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore it was called Babel, because the Lord confused the language of all the earth. And from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. There is a lot in this story that I don't understand. And I never really thought I'd preach on this text. It's not one that I read or think about often, if at all. But this week, I'm excited about this story because of what it teaches me about God and how it challenges me to live and look at the world in new ways. This story is very simple. Immediately following the flood and Noah and a heap of descendants, we come upon this story where everyone speaks the same language, presumably has the same culture, and they're still all together, and they want to live in one city and build this beautiful monument to the heavens. Now, I would think that God would be jazzed about this. Yes, they all get along, they all want to live together and work together. This is going great. But that's the opposite of what God does. So I guess that's a good thing I'm not running the show. Instead of letting this little Pleasantville spring up, instead of this uniformity and singularity, God creates diversity. Confusing, scattering, displacing diversity. And God loved it. What? What this story tells me is that this crazy plurality we live in was totally God's idea. God meant for us to be different. God meant for us not to understand each other sometimes. God meant for there to be opposing viewpoints and miscommunications. God could have had everyone be all the same all the time and said, "No thanks, no way." But then here's what happened. We took that multiplicity and made it a bad thing. We somehow turned it into teams. Us versus them. The right way versus the wrong way. Democrat versus Republican. White versus black. English versus Spanish. Women versus men. Insiders versus outsiders. Conservatives versus progressives. Incarcerated versus free, addicted versus clean, rich versus poor. Our diversity doesn't have to be divisive. God wanted diversity, but God did not want these destructive divisions. That was all us. Because you see, I have to believe that God still blesses the whole multiplicity of our culture, of our world, of our voices. While I do believe that God grows and changes and evolves, I think God's mind and heart is still set on variety. All the more ways to express the beauty of the divine. But why is this so hard for us? We see this playing out on so many scales in our lives. Nationally, we struggle with insiders and outsiders, with race, economic status, national origin. We're always dividing people and disparaging whatever we consider to be other. We're headed into 15 months of campaign ads on electoral politics, 15 months of polarizing and villainizing otherness. And we still have racial, ethnic, gender, and sexual orientation issues to be divided over. Is that really what we want? Do we want to put our energy into those battles? Can we remember that we are the ones who made these differences divisive? What about in our families and relationships? We all know that one member of the family or that one friend that's kind of a black sheep. Why do we need to distance ourselves from their otherness? Why do we push them away and single them out? Are we really that afraid of different paths? Do we really sincerely believe that our way is the only way? And our church community is facing this now. We have so many different voices, different languages even, and instead of wondering about who is going to win, can we focus on how to join those voices in harmony? Can we sing together with the richness of our differences adding to the beauty of the song? Our different voices don't have to compete with one another. Take me, for example. I know that when I speak, when I use my voice, there are some of you that say, she speaks to me and for me. My voice is one that resonates in you and with you. Others of you might be more confused or challenged or concerned by my voice, and that's totally fine by me. In fact, I don't think I'd be doing my job if I weren't nudging everybody here and there. But the greatest thing is that it's not just about my voice. Sure, you hear it from the pulpit sometimes, but the awesome thing is that we have a lot of different staff members and pastors and congregation members. And so mine is not the only voice. I am just singing one part in our full, harmonious song. And I only use myself as an example because I think it helps us talk about what we need to be moving towards as a community and as people of faith. Moving towards unity, not uniformity. We don't want everyone to be the same. We don't want everyone to be comfortable clones of one another. We need to embrace our variety and see that it makes us stronger. We need to listen to all the different voices and see if we can all sing different harmonies of the same song, learning with and from each other all along the way. Ram Dass, one of my favorite spiritual teachers, says, "We are here to awaken from the illusion of separateness. We are here to awaken from the illusion of separateness." We may be different. We are different, thank God. But we don't have to be separate. When we begin to wake up, we see that we are one. We have inherent unity. God's scattering and confusion of languages at the Tower of Babel did not make the people belong to one another any less. They did not belong to God any less. God did not suddenly choose favorites among these different groups. They may have been scattered, but their separateness was only an illusion. Above all, we are God's people. We are united around the love that we know and the ways that we try to faithfully live that out in the world. And the God that we celebrate, the God that we see alive and active in the world, is one that creates, celebrates, and continues diversity. God's action at the Tower of Babel challenges an isolationist perspective, a conformity perspective, and instead promotes diversity for the sake of all the people. May we, as God's faithful people, living and loving in our nation, families, and communities, be those who listen to all the multitude of voices and happily exclaim in whatever language you speak, Amen.